and she started asking me random questions about my life. Where did I work? Well, you know, how long have I lived here? You know, just kind of personally invasive questions, and I refused to answer them.
Then stood back and was like, "This, do you know what this is?" And I was like, "Well, no, you wouldn't really let me look at it."
So I went downstairs. I was escorted downstairs.
It says that this house has been condemned since April '99, and you are negligent on your work permits. And
by the time I was outside, they already had people in handcuffs.
I heard my name being called.
And I was just like, that's not how I understand the situation. And
one of the men that was approaching the building was asking if anyone knew where I was.
They lined all the women up over here and all the men up over here.
They led us around the front of the house.
When I heard that, I decided not to go out there. So, because I knew everyone was going to get taken away, and I didn't see any value in that.
And then after maybe 15 or 20 minutes was put in a police van, and then we were taken downtown.
Well, when we started looking at this house, we were looking at a lot of houses in the neighborhood, and this wall here, which is attached to the garage portion of the house, it actually fell in the alley. The city came with a bulldozer and pushed it all in so cars could get through, and within a month and a half, we bought the building.
Prior to May 16th, I had gotten some requests from the police department for information about various properties.
We didn't have a lot of inspectors at the start. In fact, we didn't have any because we didn't call them to come out. And we chose to do it that way because every time we went down to their office, it was just another hassle, another bureaucratic thing, and this building was a safety hazard, it was a danger, and we had to take care of it right away.
That was one of the properties that was found to be currently condemned.
So we took care of it right away, and then we thought, well, why do we even need to call them? So that's what we did, and a few years later, they caught wind of it and saw that we had done work without their permission, which upset them quite a bit, and they eventually came out.
There was a housing conservation certificate issued that was revoked within a matter of days by the supervisor.
We made a deal with Bill Schaefer of the building division, one of the supervisors, just to get one permit for everything that we had done and were going to do, and then they can inspect everything and everything would be fine.
I also checked to see if there were any current work permits, to see if they were allowed to be in there doing work on the property.
The inspector came out, he went through every room of the house, he asked me questions, he checked for electrical boxes, everything, standard procedure.
And I found that the permits had been revoked a couple of months prior.
He issued us a certificate of inspection, a COI, which was good for 1 year, and there was a minor violation on that, which was the retaining wall. At
the time that I checked on it, there was nothing current, there wasn't supposed to be anybody there.
So this is our retaining wall here. It's built with modular blocks. They each weigh about 90 pounds. Since this wall took so long because we did it by hand, that tied up all the work in the city's paperwork. It tied up everything that we were doing on the house because they couldn't complete the permit until we finished this wall, which meant technically we had never finished everything else on the entire building.
So I checked with my supervisors to see what they wanted me to do, and they told me to schedule a board up with the board up crew.
Because of the retaining wall was a few days away from completion. So that was the string that they pulled. You know, they would have found something if they didn't find that. Mm-hmm. They don't need much.
So I was working here, and I got a phone call saying that some people have been pulled over and arrested after an action downtown.
The van was pulled over for supposed seatbelt violations, and then they just kept us there for an hour, eventually impounded the car, said that there was drug violations because there was vitamin C tablets on the dashboard.
And I was getting ready to go, and then I got a call that the bullet zone had been raided. So at that point I figured that my house was going to get raided, and I had been trying to get together legal information. I had some people's personal information on a computer.
They took down all of our names and info, and then they had some other people who were unidentified come up and videotape us taking our names and info.
And I thought thought, I'm going to go back to my house and get my stuff out of this building, which is probably next on the list. So I drove Cam's little Honda Civic on back roads to the Camp building. I pulled up here on Minnesota, and I didn't want to pull right up to the building, so I parked like basically right here behind the car. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna walk inside and get what I need to get.
We found out later that other people were being arrested down the street as they left.
And I'm walking down, and you know, I'm looking around. Don't see any cops. It's pretty, you know, it's pretty quiet. There's people milling around. So I didn't know that there were police officers already watching me when I left the door.
Right about here, I realized that I really am in trouble, because I do notice that the car right in front of the car that I parked has 2 undercover police officers in it, and I gave him a winning smile as I opened the trunk of my car. I'm thinking that all I have to do is get to the bakery and I'll be fine. And that's just like 8 blocks, you know, I can do that.
So I was thinking that I'm getting down into this part of Cherokee Street, that I may make it to the bakery. So I'm walking this way, and then a cop, he wasn't going too fast, he just drove right by. He didn't even look at me, he just went right past me. I was like, well, maybe they won't stop me.
And then one car sped up from behind me, put on its lights, and I was like, okay, and I pulled over right about here. And then another car came down the other side, and then another car came up from behind me. And that was it.
And another cop pulls up, and he pulls up right directly in front of me. So he's kind of on the street. He said, hey, can I search your bag? And I say, no, I don't consent to this search, officer. They take the bag from me. It's 2 police officers. They take the bag and they search it. They go out into the middle of the street and they talk together for a little while.
He had a shirt on with a little monograph up here that said Hostage and Rescue Squad.
And they say, hey, you gotta come with us right now. I was never put under arrest. They just they put tie wraps on me and they put me in the back of a cop car.
And he was asking for like a court date, and and one of the guys was like, well, I'm just using this date. And then he asked for a violation number, because he didn't know the violation for making a turn without a signal, because he's not a traffic cop, he's a hostage and rescue cop.
I was never read my rights. None of that ever happened. At the end of the whole day, about 6 hours later, I got a arrest, all my paperwork, and the charge was public demonstration.
So then we went up 4 blocks. He called the standard District 3 like rank and file cops that do traffic stops. They came, they wrote out the tickets for me with their names on those tickets, and then they took me in to District 3 to holding, and I went downtown later on that night.
The building over on Cherokee Street was a completely different situation.